Hi there, thank you for joining me to chat about this latest episode of 90 Day Fiancé. If you're a fan of the show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also hit the thumbs up and let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comments. This episode starts out with the segment on Rob and Sophie. We see where they're in the car, they're talking about the incident that happened in the last episode at the sex shop. Rob claims that Sophie needs to figure out if he's enough for her because he does not want her to have side relationships. And I agree with that. This is something that they definitely need to figure out before now, actually. And Rob was saying that, she needs to figure out what she needs to do before they get married. And he's making it seem as though she was the only one interested or entertaining the conversation with the lady at the shop, but Rob seemed pretty interested to me. But anyway, Sophie said that, if he was doing it for her and not just interested in getting with the girl, then I guess that's okay. And she is willing to forgive him. So this is another issue that's being swept under the rug that's not really resolved. And really, I don't know why she blew up like that anyway, because it's not as if Rob was the one who propositioned the girl. She was the one who brought it up, and all they had to say was like, no, thank you, which neither of them did. So I don't understand this huge problem. But anyway, they're in the cramped apartment, and they're moving. They're wanting to cut some potatoes. Sophie's asking for his help, so they got to move stuff around because they don't have a table. We see where he's moving a folding table to some other spot. And then he sits down and he says, oh, we couldn't do this in a big kitchen. And I was like, what? What is so great about this cramped space that only has a sink and a stove? It's not a kitchen. So he's trying to sell the acceptability of this inadequate living situation that he's in. And then he tries to have a positive spin on it, saying that they're having a bonding moment, which I agree. Preparing a meal together can be seen as a bonding moment, but not having a kitchen is definitely not a positive. Anyway, Sophie's mom should be landing soon, and Rob is in the confessional griping about how Sophie's mom is mean to him. He claims that we see where they're having the meal later on. He claims that it's good. But funny enough, the camera didn't show what was on the table or what they made. I was thinking, that's suspicious. Anyway, Rob is hoping that Claire won't mess up their relationship while she's here, as they have enough problems of their own, which I agree they have a bunch of problems on their own, but I don't think Claire is one of them, because regardless, if they have a healthy relationship, whatever, Claire would say or do shouldn't affect that. But anyway, he's trying to set this thing up as though, Claire could make their, ruin their relationship or cause arguments to happen. But they're already having arguments, and they're already not having the best of relationships anyway. So Rob and Sophie went by the apartment where her mom was staying. I thought they were going to pick her up at the airport because she was saying, texting Sophie saying that she has landed. But no, it seems like she brought herself to the place that she was staying. It looks like a hotel. And so they got there, and she greeted Rob pretty warmly, but that didn't last. The warmth didn't last very long. So she wants to talk about the wedding. She's asking when is the wedding happening, which I thought was weird, because she says her and her mom are close. So why would her mom know when the wedding is happening? She wants to talk about what are the plans for the wedding. She was mentioning something old, something new, something borrowed. And Rob was saying, oh, that's an 80s thing. And they're claiming that they weren't going to do anything like that. Her mom mentioned, catching the bouquet. And she was like, telling Sophie she has to have a bouquet because she wants to catch it because she's never been married. Rob chimes in and says that, it would be between her, Claire, and his mom. And so Claire jokes that she would knock his mom out the way because, she wanted the bouquet. And typically when somebody throws the bouquet, people are, killing themselves to catch it. And so it was a joke with her saying that. But Rob there seems to be some underlying tension with Rob. He's really snippy and sarcastic and shady. And so he says, well, my mom is tiny and not as aggressive. And I was like, what? What are you trying to say? She's big and intimidating while your mom is small and helpless or, harmless? Like, why are we bringing this up? It clearly was a joke, but he's taking it to heart. And he's claiming that, he was taking it as a joke, but it didn't seem like he was. Sophie told him it was a joke. He says, I know, but it didn't seem like he was taking it as a joke. He was kind of taking it as an opportunity to, I don't know, throw shade or pick a fight. Anyway, Claire says that she feels that Rob has something that he wants to say. And she says, go ahead and say it. But he didn't really bring anything up. He said he could say many things or something like that. But Claire mentions that he doesn't have any sense of humor about him. And she mentions that she's going to see Rob's place today, so that should be interesting. When they're leaving, I noticed that Claire calls her son, and it seems like she just said that to get under his skin or something like that, but he seemed, just to annoy him. But, she doesn't really seem like she likes him that much, and she's trying to support Sophie, but it's not really the best of situations. So, this is just odd. And I hope I hope at some point, or I think she has mentioned her displeasure about the situation, but of course, Sophie's hanging around, so she's trying to at least, be there for her. Rob says he's nervous about Claire coming over and claim that she's super opinionated. And I feel like he's just saying this just because he doesn't want criticism of his living space, which he feels and he knows is inadequate. And so he's defensive about that. And so she gets over there and they go in through the courtyard, which she likes because there's flowers and all that. It looks cozy. Then they mention, the bathroom is over there. And she says, so you don't have a bathroom in the house? And crickets. Neither Sophie or Rob mentions anything when she said that or acknowledged that they heard her. So then they go inside to do the tour, and Sophie's like, here's the living area, the kitchen, and there's no area. It's all one thing. So she's looking around like in disbelief. She says, I don't know what to say. And she's just looking around, and she's like, is it safe here? He says yes. And then Sophie says no, because they heard gunshots a few nights ago. And so, she says, this is not what I visualized for Sophie. And I don't think I would be happy about this either if my child was moving into this kind of situation. And so she asked why he hasn't sorted things out, because he knew she was coming a long time ago. And he claims that in the last 2 years, he had spent all his money on their relationship, like traveling and places to stay when she visits or whatever. And her mom was just not buying it, which I agree. Like, you knew that you were wanting to get engaged, you wanted her to move. Why aren't you better prepared for her coming here? He claims that them staying in his place in the short term is better than not having seen her for a year, because her mom was like, why didn't you just save up money and just sacrifice to be able to have her in a better position when she comes here? But he's claiming that what he has done is a better option, which is like, really? Like, you're supposed to be the man, you're getting married, why aren't you prepared? So Sophie's agreeing with her mom's concerns. She claimed that, Rob didn't have a job when she arrived. So it seems that the job that he had mentioned in the episode before probably is a very recent job. So it makes me wonder, what was he doing before? How is he paying for this studio? Is this a place that he just lives and maybe, it's relatives who own it? How could you not be working? I don't understand. Where is the funds that he's talking about coming from for paying for, travel and all that if he wasn't working? So he gets defensive and claims to be living at the bottom and that they don't know what it's like to be living at the bottom, and he doesn't have help. And so basically alluding to the fact that Sophie can get help and they can get help if they ask for it. So he gets really defensive and storms outside. He's trying to act like it's, acceptable for the situation that they live in, or, trying to get married in, the setup that they have. So he's just guilt tripping and delusional. So at the same time, Sophie, I feel like Sophie's at fault as well because she has visited before. She knew the situation. And so she said, if she felt that he wasn't prepared financially as he should be, and as far as the living situation, she shouldn't have come until he was, prepared to the degree that she felt like he should be. And so she is allowing and accepting the situation, in my opinion. And so, while the mom, I feel like she's correct in how she's feeling, it's her daughter who's condoning this behavior by coming into this situation to begin with. Jasmine and Gino are on their first night in Miami, so they go out to a salsa dancing class. I didn't really have high hopes for Gino. He just didn't seem like somebody who can dance or has any flexibility at all. But he does say in his confessional that he needs a lot of work on his dancing. And he says that Jasmine said that when she has tried to have dancing, do dancing with him in the past, that he hurt her feet. But she feels like he's much improved over the last, whenever they've tried before. She's proud of him, that he's doing great, and she's smiling a lot, and they seem to have a good time. You should see Gino trying to dance with his mouth open, saying, yeah, yeah. It just cracks me up because everything that he does, a lot of the times, it's almost like he's talking to a baby. Yay, yay. If Jasmine likes it, I love it. So anyway, they were going to take some pictures and videos of the backdrop of the ocean. Jasmine says that her son Fiancé loves the videos and the pictures that they've been sending. Gino mentions about wanting a child of his own. He says that he's in his 50s and he needs to make it happen soon. But Jasmine says she's not ready. She says in her confessional that she carried a lot of pain and that Gino has no idea what she'd gone through. Which I was wondering what she was trying to say when she said that, was she having a difficult pregnancy or were there medical issues? I didn't quite get what she was saying at this point, but then, later on she went on to clarify what was happening. Jasmine says that she had the hardest time to accept that her younger son JC's diagnosis. She says that, she's worried about what if they have a child, and he's special needs. She says that JC is special needs. He doesn't have a verbal language, and so it's very difficult. And it just really breaks her heart because people are so mean and they're not very tolerant of him, because they get the stares, the looks, and, she observes the behavior of people like when they go to the restaurant, the employees. And so she is, really happy that her son doesn't realize what's going on because that would be very, very hurtful. She is scared about having another special needs child, and I feel for her, having children once you're in 30s and even going forward, they say that there's higher risk of that happening, although a lot of people have healthy pregnancies. But it's scary just to think about the possibility of that happening to you. Jasmine feels like it's her fault that he was born this way, and Gino tells her it's not her fault. And so he's sad to see her so emotional. At least in this episode, he did a really good job of comforting her and showing care versus when they had that fight about the lip gloss where he was really standoffish and just didn't really seem very warm towards her concerns. So he says whether they have a child or not, he will be there for her and he will not abandon her. So they had some really sweet moments in this episode. Miami seems to be agreeing with them because so far they haven't had a huge blowout as yet. Citra whips out her rice cooker because she says she's tired of eating potatoes. She is still mad at Sam about how irresponsible he was being with the paperwork for his diversion. And she doesn't know how or what to tell her dad, if he ends up going to jail. So Sam feels like she is regretting moving there, and he admits that it's all his fault, which I'm glad that he did because it is. She says that she has been waiting for 2 years, to get her visa and for them to be together. And so she's going to basically stick by him. And so Sam is really relieved that, she said that because he was feeling like maybe she has changed her mind or is wanting to leave, which I wouldn't blame her because I don't know, entering a marriage, he's not really showing much maturity, especially knowing that she's leaving her home country to come here. And the fact that his actions could lead to her being alone while he's in jail, that's not very considerate at all or mature, the way he was handling this situation. So at this point, her dad doesn't know about this possibility or this. I don't think he knows about the situation that happened with the police. And so they need to tell her dad at some point. Citra says that if her dad takes her back to Indonesia, then their relationship is basically over, which I wouldn't blame her dad at all. Later, we see where Sam is going to take Citra to meet her mom, Dee. They're going to her house to meet for the first time. Sam says that they had been estranged for the last 10 years, although in his earlier years, he grew up with her. But then later in his teenage years, I guess he was living with his dad. But he says that they're working on renewing their relationship since she had moved back from to the area. He tells Citra that she's kind of crazy. Sam says her mom's side of the family is very religious, but they don't practice what they preach, which I thought that was funny that he said that. Like, why even mention that? He's trying to say that they're, hypocrites, basically. He hopes that she doesn't ask like out of pocket questions or judge her religion. And I don't know why he would say that. Why would she? I guess his mom is not really sold on the whole conversion thing to Islam, basically. I guess he's concerned about that. So when they got to the house, Sam's grandma is there. Her name is Treba. And Dee says that she had just moved back from North Carolina. Okay, so that's where she moved from. Citra had also brought a dish that she made earlier for Dee to try. Sam claims to be very nervous because his mom is very volatile. I don't know. Maybe she's opinionated, maybe she's religious and not accepting of other people's religion, but volatile, I don't know. We haven't seen any evidence of volatility, no flashbacks or anything like that. So I don't know if that's the proper, phrase to use. Sam and Citra are supposed to be getting married in a few days. He still hasn't done his conversion as yet because when Dee asked if it's done as yet, he said they still have to make appointment, find a mosque. But weren't they supposed to do that weeks ago? Why haven't they still found a mosque as yet if they're supposed to be getting married here shortly? Dee says that she's excited, but this is all new to her. And she doesn't feel like, a person should have to change their religion to get married. And she says she prefer, if she were a Christian, she said that if they could serve the same God that she does, she would prefer that. But is it a different God? I really want to go into religious topics, but it's just the practices are different, but I don't know that it's necessarily a different God. She asked what would happen if he didn't convert. Basically, everything would be off. Dee says she approves of the marriage, but not of the Muslim aspect of it and having to convert and all that. She says, she's saying how can she go to something that she doesn't agree with regard to attending the wedding? But basically, sometimes you have to make sacrifices and might have to just do that to support Sam. Sam thinks that her mom took the conversation about the conversion pretty well, which I thought, considering how he was building up and making it seem like she would have gone crazy about the whole thing. She was pretty subdued, and I feel like what she was mentioning are possibly valid concerns about, the conversion and all that, especially if you grew up in a different religion. Of course, you're not going to gladly say go convert to something else. So Sam was making a big deal, which I feel like was unnecessary. Nikki and Igor are back in this episode. Why, oh Lord? Why are they here? I was under the impression, or she was given the impression, that it would have been over with them in the last time we saw them on the episode. Anyway, we see where they're on the way back from the winery. Igor is saying he doesn't know what the problem is. Well, she did explain what the problem is. But anyway, Nikki says that she feels like a sugar mama and that he is getting sex from elsewhere. Igor says that if she wants, they could try together another girl. And he had a smile on his face, and I thought he was just like, it was just like a bad joke. But they go on to talk about this, like, legitly. He was proposing a threesome, and I was just like, oh my goodness. On top of this whole blowout from the last episode, you're really bringing this up now? In his confessional, he says that it's one of his dreams, which I don't understand how exactly this threesome would work. If he doesn't want Nikki, what exactly would her role be there? To oversee? Because he's not really that excited about being intimate with her. She's been begging and pleading and it hasn't happened. So why exactly would he want a threesome with Nikki unless it was to have access to the third person? Anyway, Nikki seemed to blame all her problems on her gender. As per usual, she feels that he wants a threesome because she was born a man. Newsflash. A lot of people fantasize about threesomes. It has nothing to do with gender. This is yet another thing that they have at odds. And you could tell because of the age difference, because she's saying that she already experimented in her 20s. He's in his early 30s. And so he still probably hasn't done that and wants to do that. And so this is another area in which they're incompatible. And they still seem to try to be forcing things to happen. So they get back to the apartment and Nikki says they need to talk. She was in the room and then she kind of storms back out to the living area where Igor was and tells him they need to talk. So she asks how many partners has she had, how many people he was having sex with, and since they had been having unprotected sex together. Igor said that he always protected himself, and he told her that, well, he claims it was only 2, which I don't know if I buy this, Igor. Only 2 of them? Nikki says she has had 3-somes, 4-somes, basically, when she mentions her experience and what she's had. And Igor says that, she's really advanced or something of that nature. Igor says that they don't have to do it now, but maybe in the future. And so Nikki snaps. Like, are you seriously telling me that you want after we get married to be doing 3-somes? So Nikki is still wondering where to go with the relationship once again when the answer is so obvious. Later on, we see where they were in the bedroom. It seems kind of awkward, not much being said. And so Igor asked if he could go out with Iwan. And Nikki says that's fine because while he was gone, she called her mom. So she tells her mom about the whole saga at the winery and about, Igor seeing other people while she thought they were in a relationship. She tells her mom about Igor wanting a threesome, and her mom tells her to tell him to get over his desires. What kind of advice is that? If the man wants a threesome, you're unwilling to do a threesome, that is a huge, huge problem. And her mom goes on to tell her that, she wants to, give him an ultimatum because she wants to get married and have a life. Now, why would you want to marry a person who wants to do something that you don't agree with, you're not interested in doing? Why give an ultimatum? You guys just are not on the same wavelength. Anyway, they clearly shouldn't be getting married. So I don't know why her mom was wanting her to give an ultimatum about getting married. They are nowhere near ready or compatible enough to be married. But anyway, you would think that she would say, maybe take some time to think about stuff, or, maybe write down the pros and cons and see if the pros outweigh the cons of keeping the relationship. I don't know, something, but not to give an ultimatum and tell him that he needs to get over his desires. Nikki goes on to bring up the engagement party that's coming up, and her mom tells her she doesn't have to do it. I guess that's the only good piece of advice that she gave. So Igor meets up with his friend, Ivan. I think that's pronounced slightly different, but so they chat about what happened at the winery as well. Ivan says that he understands how Nikki's feeling because when somebody's in love, they're consistently looking for reasons to trust. So Ivan goes on to say that women are naturally manipulative and that he needs to put his foot down and show his masculine side. Now, how are women naturally manipulative? I, for one, have never heard this before. I was kind of stunned by this because he was giving decent advice when they first started sitting down. And now he's saying this. And I was like, wow. Let me know in the comments if you've ever heard this before. This is the first that I'm hearing that. So Igor agrees that he needs to be more masculine. And I don't know how he proposes to be more masculine, because how is he going to top Nikki? Because Nikki is very masculine. How are you going to be masculine enough to put your foot down as it relates to Nikki? I just don't understand why they keep dragging this out. They clearly are not compatible. They don't have a good relationship. Why even bother? At Ashley's house, she has a visitor, and it turns out to be a friend of Manuel's whose name is Jonathan, whom he hasn't seen in like 7 years, but who coincidentally lives in New York City. Manuel says Ashley likes to surprise him, and one of these days she's going to kill him, I guess, with his surprises. But he is very happy to see his old friend, whom he had grown up with, he said, from when they were in diapers or something like that. But he says that they've always kept in touch over the years, and so he was very happy to see him. Ashley asked Jonathan how he had learned English, and he said basically in the streets, just going out and about, he just picks it up. Jonathan tells Manuel that Ashley would be the perfect teacher because, of course, she speaks English. And he says that she just yaps and yaps, basically, and Jonathan tells him that, repetition makes perfect, basically. So you got to practice. Jonathan and Manuel goes out for a bit. They go to a bar for some guy's time. And Manuel brings up how much money she spends on unnecessary things. And he says that life is different here from back home. Jonathan tells him that, and that he needs to get used to it. But that he sees, he doesn't say that. He said that in the confessional, but he tells him in the live conversation that he kind of sees his side. Jonathan explains that the problem in the U.S. is that they consume a lot, and, people tend to have more than they need. He brings up how, he has a bunch of sneakers and then he sees another one. He just buys it just because it makes him happy. Not necessarily that it's something necessary that he needs. So Manuel says he's frustrated because Ashley has never experienced hardship. And this could be why she can't seem to, I'm just saying that he didn't say that. This might be the reason why, she can't seem to get his point of view or understand his frugality. Although she doesn't really have to experience poverty or hardship to see a person's point of view, but maybe just her growing up and being able to spend whenever she wants. She doesn't consider the fact that there are people who struggle and who, the money that she spends could do so much for them. She's not really thinking of that. So Manuel says that, he's missing his home country and his family. Jonathan asks him if he's ready for the next step to get married to Ashley, and he says it's easy to say, but it's harder to do. So basically, easy to say that I'm ready, but it's going to be a lot of work. I don't know why he couldn't just say yes. Like, why does he have to say that? He could be like, and end it right there. But I don't know. He just always never seemed to give a straight up answer about, being ready for the wedding or ready to get married. Later on, they go out as a group, and the first thing that Ashley orders is her coffee. She loves her coffee. And then they sat down and she asked, what did they talk about last night? What did they talk about her? Jonathan says Manuel is very happy and that she's the best woman in the world. Manuel says, slow down, don't lie to her. I think they were just joking around, though. So she asked him to help her figure out what the money issue is with Manuel, because he never wants to spend money. And I don't know, I guess it could be a fair question to ask a friend or somebody who has a culture in common to Manuel, but I feel like shouldn't she talk to Manuel about this, or hasn't she already talked to him about this, where he mentions, having to take care of the family? I think she should probably already understand the reason why he's so spendthrift. But anyway, she poses this question to Jonathan. But I feel like whatever Jonathan would say would be an assumption because he doesn't know the inner workings of his family, maybe, or what Manuel is thinking. So the best person to pose this question to would be Manuel. Jonathan says that they need to have balance with saving and spending and still enjoy their lives. Manuel feels like they spend money that could be sent to Ecuador, and Ashley says that they do send money to Ecuador. And Manuel says, yeah, twice in a month. But didn't they agree on $100 per month until the wedding? Unless it's been more than 2 months from when they agreed to this, it sounds like she's doing what they agreed on, but he doesn't seem happy. But if she's doing what they agreed on, what's the problem? She still doesn't like to see her wasting money. But even then, let's say, she's wasting money because she, let's say she saves that money. It doesn't need to go to Ecuador. She should be able to save it if she wants to. I can agree with not wasting money, but that doesn't mean it needs to go to his family. So she also brings up how he's keeping her separated from his family, which he didn't address. Funny enough, nobody said anything about that, neither him nor Jonathan. Manuel says that they need the money. His family needs the money, as they were continuing this conversation about money and spending money. And Ashley says that she needs it too. Manuel says that he worries about others while she worries about herself. And I was just like, oh my goodness. That wasn't kind of necessary to say. She's not completely selfish. She is sending money. It might not be as much as he would like or as frequent as he would like, but she is. I don't think that's fair for him to say. So anyway, she got upset and she left the table. And we see where Jonathan just sat there with an awkward smile on his face, like, oh boy, what did I step into? Ashley feels offended because Manuel doesn't feel like she is supporting him, and she is basically financially carrying everything, so she doesn't understand why he would feel like she's not supporting him enough. She's supporting him financially and emotionally and physically, so she is very upset. But I do hope that she's not constantly bringing up the fact that she's paying for everything every day, because I could see that breeding tension and resentment, because she knows he's unable to work during this period that he's on the K1 visa. And she knows this ahead of time, that he wouldn't be able to provide anything to the household, and whatever his liabilities are back home that she would be responsible for. So she keeps bringing this up, but this is a known problem or issue that he's responsible for the family back home. So I don't understand why this is a problem. But I do see a problem with him wanting her to send more money back home than what they agreed to. They already had an agreement. She seems to be living up to it. So I don't understand why he's still upset about how she's spending her money. Manuel tells Jonathan that she says they're lucky, which hurts him. So I guess I can kind of see this coming off as hurtful, because the way that she's saying it is that, she's doing them a favor, they should be grateful. That seems possibly how it's coming off and why he's taking offense to that. And maybe that's something that they need to talk about, in her comments about, his family. But, these are people that he cares about. And so I could see why that could be hurtful. And so if he hasn't mentioned this to Ashley, I don't know that she would know that he's taking offense to this, but he's saying this to Jonathan. So, I understand that Ashley may be spending money frivolously, and it might be hard for him to watch, knowing how far the money could go back home and knowing that his family needs it versus just basically throwing it out, making frivolous purchases. But it's still, her money that she earns, and she seems to be holding up to the deal. So I don't understand why he's still so hell bent on bringing up how she spends her money. Now, if he was encouraging her to save more, I would be okay with that because I'm kind of a thrifty person myself. But if you're encouraging her to not spend so she can then send that money that she's not spending to your family, I feel like that's being a little overbearing and a little bit greedy because they agreed on $100 per month and she seems to be doing that. It's the morning after the night out with Cameron and his girlfriend, and Anali is still very much mad at Clayton, and I don't blame her. On screen, we're told that it's been 59 days without sex, and that's what he gets for being a jerk. I do not feel sorry for him. Clayton says that it's his life too, and he was discussing it with his friend and his girlfriend. No, sir. You brought it up in front of the waitress, whom you did not know. V was present, whom you do not know as far as we're aware. The only person who you're friends with and super close with is Cameron. So if he was just seeking advice, he could have talked to Cameron in private. So I'm not buying this line here, trying to make it seem like he was so innocent and just talking about his problems with a friend. Anali says Clayton wants to fix something. If Clayton wants to fix something with her, he should talk about it with her, which I agree. They are having breakfast. He made breakfast. They go outside to sit down. And Anali wants to talk about what happens last night. And she tells him how she felt uncomfortable about him discussing their personal life like that. And Clayton apologized and said that he was talking about it with his best friend, and says that, and she says, that's fine. You could talk about it with Cameron, but not while I'm present. She is still bothered about what happened, and to the point where she didn't even want his little cheek kiss that he was trying to give to her. She is still very much upset, which I can understand. Clayton meets up later on with Cameron for a Peruvian dance lesson. They're having a lesson on a dance, which is the national dance of Peru. Cameron says that Clayton is actually doing much better than he expected, and after they did their little lesson, they sat down to have a chat to talk about what happened last night. Cameron says that there's a lot going on. They're not having sex, and the fact that she is hiding her dad from him, that's another problem as well. Clayton says that, he could lose the relationship because if he says that he's going to go bring it up or disclose the relationship to, to her dad, then she might as well just break things off. And so he's scared basically of losing the relationship. Cameron thinks that she also has some uncertainty about Clayton as well, which I believe that's totally true. Because if you look at the pictures from when she visited in Peru and all of that, they seemed very happy, versus now they're kind of, I don't know, there's kind of don't seem as close. They're kind of, distant. Something has happened. And I don't know if it's because of the living situation where she comes and she's just in all this mess and she just didn't know what she was coming into, and now she seemed maybe having a different impression of him than what she thought it was. She just seems a bit closed off. So that is something that still is a problem that needs to be discussed or figured out. Cameron says that he needs to take some time to think about what kind of marriage it is that he would want to have, which is really mature of him to say. After the meetup, Cameron comes back to the place where they're staying, and he says he wants to say goodbye because they'll be leaving soon. Cameron gives Anali a big hug before leaving. He's a really nice guy. He's not really weird. You'd think that somebody online who you've been chatting to, you'd expect somebody weird, but he seemed to be very mature. He seems like a really young guy and very social and well-adjusted. Unlike Clayton. Clayton is a bit socially awkward. Clayton goes on to grill. He's going to make dinner and says he wants to talk to Anali about her dad. So when he brings up her dad, she gives him the death stare. And so he says, "Why are you looking at me like that?" She says, "We already discussed this. I didn't think we needed to talk about this again." And basically about her plan for, pretending that they just met over here after a while. So, yeah, that didn't go well. She asked, "Do you want to ruin dinner?" when he brought up the conversation about her dad. And so Clayton says that he wants to meet her dad. It's been 2 years or 2.5 years or something like that. Anali says that her dad is a good person, but he's very, very protective. And, you know, he was very protective, but now that she's not there, he's like triple protective than what he was when she was there. And so I just don't understand. Like, let's say he's very super overbearing and whatnot. You're not even on the same continent, so why would you be so fearful to introduce Clayton? And maybe it's something where she could potentially be disowned and she's carrying on with the relationship just out of love, but she doesn't want to disclose that for fear or something like that, maybe. But if that's the case, then maybe that's something that she should tell to Clayton so he understands why this is not happening. But there seems to be more going on with this dad situation that she's disclosing to him. But I feel like it's not unreasonable for him to ask to meet her dad. They are getting married, so he should at least be able to meet the parents, especially the parents are alive. Why couldn't he meet the parents? He should be able to. So, you know, I thought she was going to say, when she had mentioned that her dad was a good person, I thought she was going to say my dad is, you know, in the cartel or is some gangster or something like that. That would make a little bit of sense, but that wasn't the case either. So if he's not a bad guy, what is the problem? I just don't understand. So anyway, she ended up leaving the table. She said she had lost her appetite and she went inside. And so when Clayton went inside to go check on her, you could hear sniffling in the room. She went in and closed the door, whatever room she was in. It sounded like she was crying. So I don't know. There seems to be a lot going on with this dad issue or family issue that it should be interesting to see, like, what is really going on. What is the real nature of the problem here? Anyway, I think that's all for this episode. Let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe.